Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm very excited about today's video because I've got a super promising dupe of the Pat McGrath Mothership #1 palette. And this comes from Makeup Revolution, actually from the Revolution Pro branch, if I want to be exact. They have a line of eyeshadow palettes called Color Focus in this brand, and quite a few of them seem to be dupes of the Pat McGrath palettes. So if any of you haven't seen it already, this is the outer packaging of the Pat McGrath Mothership 1 palette. Absolutely gorgeous. I think these are a masterpiece on their own. But obviously what us makeup lovers are really excited about is the palette itself. This is how it looks like. The back of it is gold and reflective, and you have her logo on it. You have the logo on the front as well. As I'm pretty sure you know, these palettes don't have the name on the palette. You have a separate little card with the names of the shades, which I honestly don't mind, because at the end of the day, when you're sitting there doing your makeup, it makes no difference what the name of the shade is. That really only comes handy when you are talking about the shades, so you have a reference. But other than that, it really doesn't matter. So when you're using the palette in your day-to-day life, you really are not gonna miss the names of the shades. This is how the palette looks like on the inside. For me, this is my absolute favorite. I know a lot of people find this palette boring, I guess because of these taupey cool toned shades here, but I personally love cool toned shades, and for me this palette is just absolute perfection. I love every single shade in it. One interesting thing to mention, which I haven't really seen anyone talking about, is that whilst the first 6 shades have 1.2 grams of product in them and they have 30 months shelf life, the last 4 shades, these more innovative shades that Pat McGrath is really known for, they only have 18 months shelf life and they contain 1.5 grams of product. So they have slightly more product in them than the first more traditional shades do, but they also have significantly less shelf life. Another kind of funny thing to mention is that when you're looking at the packaging, it's gonna tell you that it was made in the USA. So when you pick up the palette, you might think that this palette was actually made in the USA. However, the made in the USA only applies for the packaging, and when you actually check the label on the palette, it will tell you that it was made in Italy. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Huda Beauty, Natasha Denona, all the big expensive brands get their palettes done in Italy because they have a very high quality production there. So there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't see why would you put the made in USA on the outer packaging when the palette was really made in Italy. There's nothing wrong with that, and I just find it a bit shady. But apart of that, everything about this palette feels really, really luxurious. It actually feels a lot more luxurious than my Natasha Denona palettes do, and the performance is absolutely top notch, so I have no complaint about anything regarding to this palette, except one thing, which is the price point. In the USA, they retail for $125, which is a lot of money, but it is actually a lot more expensive here in the UK, because here they're selling them for £120 if you go to the Pat McGrath website, or £115 if you go to websites like Selfridges or Net-a-Porter. And that translates to $150, $155. So it is a lot more expensive if you're buying it from England, but I guess that's just the way it is. Good news is that if you're buying from Pat McGrath's website, they are not gonna make you pay any duty fees on it. So when I ordered her palette, I was really, really scared that they're gonna charge me like an extra £100 for the palettes, but they didn't. So that's at least good news. It might also be the reason why they're selling it for so much more here, because they're already those duty fees into the price of the palette. Nevertheless, it is super pricey wherever you're buying it from, $125 or £120. They're both a crazy price for an eyeshadow palette, especially considering that you're only getting 10 shades. Now the dupe we're talking about today is the Revolution Pro Night and Day palette. This palette has a lot more humble packaging. I think considering that it's a drugstore palette, it definitely has a really nice packaging. It's made out of faux leather, so it's a bit more luxurious than most of the Revolution palettes are. However, it does retail for £13, so it is a lot more steep than most drugstore eyeshadow palettes are, which to be honest you would kind of expect from this line, because this whole Revolution Pro line is basically about Makeup Revolution using better ingredients, better quality control, and just selling you overall better quality products for a little bit of a higher price. I feel like £13 for a very decent palette is still not a lot to pay, especially when we are willing to pay £50–60 for a Huda Beauty or a Jeffree Star eyeshadow palette. I think £13 for a good palette is very acceptable, but it is a lot more than you would normally pay in drugstore. Now, this palette was made in Taiwan, which is the first time I see any palette being made there. It's probably part of Makeup Revolution offering better quality that they decided to move the production of these palettes over to Taiwan instead of the People's Republic of China. It is also cruelty-free, which I'm sure a lot of you will be very happy to hear, and it has slightly more product in it than the Pat McGrath palette does, because this palette has 1.5 grams of product in each pan, meaning that the first 6 shades have slightly more product in them, whilst the 4 transformative shades have exactly the same amount as the Pat McGrath palette did. So overall this palette has 15 grams of product in it, whilst the Pat McGrath palette had 13.2 grams of product. One sad thing to mention though is that it has only 12 months shelf life. Because it's a powder product, you don't really have to stop using it after 12 months. However, you should expect that the performance will start declining and the creamy shades will start drying out and everything will adhere less and less to the skin. So you can use it for 3 years just like all other powder products. However, they don't guarantee basically that the performance will be the same as it was in the first 1 year of using it. Now this is how the inside of this palette looks like. As you can see, all of the shades are exactly the same and they are in the exact same order as the Pat McGrath palette shades, which is really handy if you're trying to follow a tutorial of the Pat McGrath palette, because you don't need to look for the shades. They are in exact same order. And I'm gonna now go on and include some swatches for you to see. As you can see, the shades are extremely similar. Maybe the only shades that I found slightly less pigmented are the matte shades, meaning the black, the dark brown, and this lighter brown shade. They didn't have as good of a color payoff as the Pat McGrath palette shades did, but the duochrome shades were just as duochrome as the original shades, and I was just super impressed with it overall. I'm also going to do some quick live swatches for you just so I can show you how they perform. I have to admit that when I'm doing the swatches for this short clip that I always include in my videos, I do tend to build up the shades as much as I can just so you can see the full color of each shade. So first let's do the shade called We Are Violet, which is called Steel in the Revolution palette. I'm gonna swatch the Pat McGrath one first and then the Revolution one. So as you can see, the Pat McGrath one definitely performed a lot better here than the Revolution one did. So I'm gonna take a bit more now of both shades and let's see how much we can build these up. So first I'm gonna build up the Pat McGrath shade a bit more. So gorgeous. And then I'm taking a bit more of the Revolution one. I think the Revolution one definitely appears to be darker, even though it has that same sheen to it. It has the same duochrome effect. The base of the color is just darker than the Pat McGrath versions. Now let's see the shade Blitz Blue, which is the pop of shade in this palette. Absolutely gorgeous blue color. I have to admit it was one of the main reasons I decided to buy this palette, because I absolutely love a gorgeous blue shade. In the Revolution palette, this shade is called Midnight. So let's first swatch the Pat McGrath one and then the Revolution one. I think with the Pat McGrath shade I definitely managed to pick up more pigment, but you will just need to go back with a bit more on the dupe side. Other than that, the shade is slightly different. I feel like the Revolution one has a bit more purple or a bit more grey in it. I definitely preferred the Pat McGrath version of this. I'm gonna try to take a bit more of these as well and build them up. I think overall they are very, very similar shades, and the Revolution version is very good quality, especially considering the price point. Okay, next I want to swatch the shade Extreme Black, because I'm sure we're all interested in how the black shade performs in each palette. Just like before, I'm going to start with the Pat McGrath one and then the Revolution. Actually, the Revolution was better. That's interesting. I'm gonna take a bit more and build up this black shade now, because with a matte shade it always requires 2-3 layers to build up a good opaque swatch. So as you can see, even just adding a little bit more to the Pat McGrath shade, it immediately turned into a really, really nice swatch of a matte shade. And I'm taking a bit more of the Revolution one as well. I feel like the Revolution one is overall a lighter shade. It's more like a very, very dark grey, but it's really, really good performance. And if you're wearing this shade on your eye, I don't think anyone would notice the difference. Okay, let's just do one more shade. I want to do one more of the shimmery shades. I'm gonna do the pale gold shade, which in the dupe palette is called Sunrise. I didn't get to use this shade in today's video, so I just want to do a live swatch and show you how it compares to the original one. So here is the Pat McGrath version. Absolutely blinding, such a gorgeous color. And this is the dupe one. Yes, the dupe is definitely not as good. I mean, look at the original one and how the dupe version compares. I'm gonna be honest though, for me this pale gold shade is a bit out of place in this palette, because all the other shades are really cool toned, and whilst this is a cool toned gold shade, it still has a lot of yellow to it. And I just don't really see myself using this shade with anything else from this palette. She has some gorgeous green shades in some of her other palettes, which I don't own yet, but I think definitely will at some point. And I would see myself pairing this pale gold shade with those gorgeous green shades, but I just don't see yellow mixing well with grey tones, but that might be just me. But if I could replace anything from this palette, I would get one more of a blue shade or one more of a purple shade instead of that yellow color. So if you guys have seen any of my previous dupe review videos, you know exactly what the next step is now. We are going to jump into creating this eye makeup look, and I will talk you through the steps. And once we're done creating this eye makeup look, I'm gonna be back here and I will tell you my final thoughts of these two palettes. So before we jump into this look, just a quick disclaimer, this was my first time using any of these palettes. So when I decided to start off with the darker brown shade called Substance, I thought that it was matte. well, it wasn't. You can clearly see on my eyelid that it has a sheen to it, but at the end of the look, I really didn't mind because I was using other shimmery shades on the top of it anyways, and it being shimmery didn't stop me from building it up, and it definitely didn't stop me from being able to work it together with matte shades. So it's a beautiful shade and it's very, very easy to blend. After I was done with substance on both sides, I went off camera and I used some concealer to prepare a half cut crease. When my half cut crease was done, I came back and I started building up the outer corner using extreme black. On the dupe side, this shade is called Blackout. And I must say that even though the swatches that we did in today's video didn't look as dark as the Pat McGrath side, it actually turned out pretty much identical. I didn't experience any more fallout on the dupe side than I did on the Pat McGrath side. Once I was done with the black shade, I applied the shade Lilac Dusk, which is called Quartz, in the dupe palette. I applied both of them all over the concealer, and I pretty much set the rest of the concealer using this lilac shade. Such a gorgeous shade. It appears to have a slight sheen, but as you could see on my eyelids, once I applied them, they pretty much turned matte, and oh, I love this shade. Once I applied this shade, I went back with a bit more of substance, which is called Musk, in the dupe palette, and I basically blended the black shade and the lilac shade into each other. Once I was done with this, I went off camera and I completed my face makeup. As you could see, I applied some false lashes as well, and when I was back, I put some of Skin Show Nude in my inner corner. This shade is called Dusk in the dupe palette, and I must say that the dupe palette is less shimmery. It definitely appears to be just slightly more matte and slightly more orange. It just appears to be darker than Skin Show Nude, but they are super similar. Then I took some of the shade Astral White, which appears to be white in the palette but has a gorgeous blue shift to it. Absolutely beautiful. It's not white at all when you apply it to your eye. So once again, this is the completed look. As you could tell from the video, this eye was done using the original Pat McGrath palette, and this side was done using the Revolution Pro Day and Night palette. I can't see the difference. I don't know if you can. I didn't feel the difference at any point during the application. It's a really nice experience. As I was showing you when we were doing the live swatches, some shades are slightly harder to work with just because you don't get that instant boom, and I think that's just the price you pay for saving more than £100 on this eyeshadow palette. But apart of that, you really don't sacrifice anything to save that £100. You get slightly more product, you get less shelf life, yes, but you can purchase it every year if you want to keep using it, and even if you purchase it 3 times, you still save a lot of money. The shades are gorgeous, the payoff is amazing. Of course, as always, it's up to you guys. Will I now get rid of my Pat McGrath palette? Absolutely no. I feel like owning a Pat McGrath palette it's an experience. From the time you receive it, the excitement when you undo the twine, and it's just such a gorgeous palette, and when you hold it in your hand, you cannot deny the quality. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I will keep my Pat McGrath palette and I will carry on using it. But if you cannot or don't want to spend $125 or £120 on it, you do have this option, and you're not going to sacrifice any of the color payoff, any of the pigmentation. You will be able to create the exact same look. All of the colors have the exact same finish. These shades have slight sheen to them, just like the original. These shades are duochrome, just like the original. So everything basically works exactly the same as they do in the original palette. And like I said, the matte shades might not give you the same color payoff as they do in the original one, but they are buildable, they are blendable, you're not gonna have patchy areas, and I think the look I created today really speaks for itself. I was able to achieve the exact same look and no one would be able to tell them apart. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have you here. I have also recently created a Facebook page, so if you would like to chat, if you would like to see some behind the scene photographs, definitely connect over there. I also have an Instagram where you can follow me and see pictures of the looks I created. So definitely do keep in touch, and until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you very soon. Bye.